Welcome to the Andrew Tucker TV channel. Thank you so much for joining for another discussion, another important political discussion and commentary. Now, this afternoon, we are going to look at heated Jamaica's first debate on social issues. Who won? And that is what we'll be looking at this afternoon. Now, the 2025 Jamaican General Election debates have officially started. And last night, the first debate on social issues kicked off, and it was heated. From crime and education to poverty and healthcare, the candidates clashed on the big issues that matter most to Jamaicans. In this video, I will break down the highlights of the debate, who came out on top, and what this means for the road to election day. Was it all talk, or did we hear real solutions for Jamaica's future? Let's get into the weed of the discussion. Now, we know that the participants in the debate were as follows. This was a debate on social issues. Now, this is something that I've never seen before. Somebody told me that it was also done in the last election, but they seem now to be changing up the substance of our debates, of the political debates. So even for on the economy, we're going to have a team of people. Instead of having the Minister of Finance, we're going to have a team of people who will be on both parties to defend the economic policies of the incumbent and also of the opposition. Something that is interesting. I don't think I agree with that format. I think that healthcare, education, finance, and of course, debates that will include the prime minister and the opposition leader, they should be single-handedly done because these are all the representatives. These are the guys or the women who are set atop of these ministries, and they ought to answer to very important questions. If they have to have people to help them, it means therefore that they will not be able, or they should not be stewarding that ministry. That is my opinion. I don't know what you think. Yes, they have a team that works for them and with them, but at the helm, they should be able to come and defend the policies of their respective ministries. So we had last night JLP, Colonel Charles Jr., Matthew Samuda, and Kamina Johnson Smith. These were the people who were on Team JLP, Team Jamaica Labour Party, and on Team People's National Party, we had Damien Crawford, Raymond Price, and Sophia Fraser Binns. These were the participants in the social debates that were held last night. Now, the question is who won? And I would say that neither one. I don't know if I can say that either party won, because what they were doing, they were actually throwing barbs at each other, suggesting that the JLP would have said that under their stewardship, they have done very well and they have implemented the best policies. In terms of healthcare, the JLP was very, very strident that they have refurbished and they have built clinics and all the things that they have done, and the JLP, the PNP really falls short. Now, what was not contextualized is that the JLP, after 2016, particularly after 2022, had more access, had more fiscal space under the international, what they call it now, the International Monetary Funds Agreement. Now, they had more fiscal space. They're not saying that. They're not saying one of the reasons why in 2015 and thereabout, in our hospitals, for the gowns, not the gowns, but the robe, whatever you call it, that the doctors wear, they had to use candle bags, because they didn't have enough of that for surgeries, which meant, of course, we were under the strictures of the IMF, 7.5% surplus, primary surplus that we're running on the budget. We have to take these things into context. And I didn't hear any of the leaders say that. They were just itemizing that, okay, that was old news according to Raymond Price. We need to move on, right? And these were the sort of the childish sort of, barbs that they were throwing at each other. I didn't find that to be interesting. I didn't think that they were presenting any vision as to where they're taking the country to. Now, I do also disagree with the format. of the debates, it looked very well. Don't get me wrong now. Let us look at the positives of the debates, right? Because everything is not all dark and gloomy. First of all, we must thank the professionalism of the moderators. And I thought that it was excellent. And I thought that the layout, the physical design was also excellent, world class, right? It shows that Jamaica has some good things going on for it. And we can put on a debate and the world could watch and we could be very proud of what we saw and what we heard. Intelligent discussions. Well, not necessarily that they're speaking of substance, because the fact is that you can speak intelligently, yet you're not speaking anything of substance, right? Anything that is visionary as far as politics is concerned. It was a normal debate in terms of who wins, and that is what we do for debates. So when the schools go up for debates, then the judges are going to say who is or was more eloquent, who forwarded or advanced very substantive points and cogently and forcefully did so. So these are the issues that they were looking at. But in terms of proffering substantive policy platforms and stances, I think that that was very lacking in the debates. However, I cannot blame the members of parliament for not being able to flesh out their vision for Jamaica. How can you do so in 45 seconds or in 2 minutes? Not possible. Not possible. I think that you have to give, if you're going to have a debate, let it be at least for 2 or 3 hours and let them thresh out what they need, with intermittent breaks, of course. Let them flesh out what they need. So I would say 5 to 7 minutes that, each participant should have at least, right, to be able to flesh out what they're talking about. But when you're giving them these, very short, very brief, window of time to articulate and to expound upon their vision for Jamaica in terms of policies, I don't think that that was going to, they were going to be able to do that. Now, you could see also that Damon Crawford and to a lesser extent, Charles Jr. that was a bit both of them were a bit nervous at the start of the interview because, as I'm saying, anybody would be nervous when they have to speak on issues that affect Jamaicans, very big issues too, and given such a brief time, a brief window of time to articulate those visions. I think that that was not good. So you could see Damon Crawford a little bit, like he was sweaty or not sorry, he was oily, whatever it was. But Damon Crawford looked very well last night. Very good, Mr. Crawford. And that is how you should look all the time. That is how you should look at it all the time. You might have to be wearing a jacket and, a tie, a suit per se, but you can groom your hair and, groom your whatever you need to groom and make sure that you look dapper and decent because the job demands that. And you are a model or should be a model to all young people and to all people, even adults in our society. All right. That is very important that Damon Crawford understand that. But apart from that, I think that we need to understand that these debates also have to include matters of geopolitics, and that was missing last night. We tend to reason in Jamaica as if we are in charge of running that country. And that is what the leaders would like you to have. And many people still, and when they call me, the conversations are so narrow and are so shallow that you just have to go with the tide because you understand that they don't understand that most Jamaicans, including the diaspora, don't understand the profundity of geopolitics and how it plays out in domestic policies. So nobody was talking about the impending war, US war with Venezuela, whether it's a physical war or it's a war in which the president might be deposed because he opposes US policies and US ways of doing things. Nobody spoke about that. And this is going to be it's going to play a very huge portion in terms of what lies ahead. It's going to play a big role in terms of what lies ahead and in terms of our national sovereignty. We have to pay serious attention to geopolitics. And our journalists in Jamaica are not doing that. I mean, you open the paper this morning, the Jamaica Gleaner, the Sunday Gleaner, and the Sunday Observer, and now nobody's mentioning anything about what is happening in Venezuela. Oh, it's in the South Cone. It's in Southern America, South America. So we don't need to be concerned about that. Yes, we do need to be concerned about it. Okay, because we hear from Kamala Purcell de Caesar that she is on the US side because the US is fighting drug trafficking and is securing the Caribbean and Latin American region. And is that so? Haven't we seen the history before with Iraq and all of these other countries in which the United States has suggested that it's going there to spread peace and democracy? And what has it turned out to be eventually? A war zone. So we have seen these things and we're repeating ad nauseum the same sentiments over and over, and we're getting, different results. We're getting the same results. I shouldn't say different results. We're getting the same results in terms of lack of development, more US control, and manipulation. And we are not concerned about these things. We're just concerned about what Andrew Holness or what we think Mark Golding will be able to accomplish in office when we know that they are really not the ones in charge. And that is why perhaps Damon Crawford and Raymond Price were not particularly concerned or were not pushed to speak about the IMF and the IMF's role in causing, the doctors and the deficiencies that we have in the healthcare and the education sector. They weren't prepared to talk about that, and that the IMF and their policies, were toxic and militated against any levels of development that we should have at this time in 2025 and beyond. They won't talk about that because they dare not talk about that. What I hear Kamina Johnson-Smith talking about, for example, is that they will be expanding the students' loan, program in terms of allowing students to borrow more money for books and for whatever that they need as students. And we have to be cautioned about that because we see what is happening in the United States in terms of students' loan debt. And many of these loans were loans that were foisted upon them. And yes, they should have been responsible and they should read, but they're young people. And if they don't hear the traps, these are debt traps. And we don't want this sort of debt trap to be foisted up on our children because these equity firms will be going down there. These private equity firms will be going down there and they will sort of entice our students, entice our students to take out these loans at astronomical interest rates and then wound up not being able to pay, and then they're going to be debt slaves. We've got to be careful. And I'm telling Jamaicans, be careful of these wonderful promises because we know that we are governed by technocrats and not by government officials. And these technocrats don't care. What they care about is just simply making a profit and making huge, obscene profits. That is what they are concerned about. And that is what we have to understand. Okay, so when she's saying that, it sounds good, all well and good to have money and extra to buy books and to do whatever you want to do as a student. I was there, understand it, but the fact of the matter, I hope that you read about the private equity firms and their involvement with the Students' Loan Bureau and financial aid around the world. Very important that you understand that. Now, I think that Kamina Johnson-Smith was perhaps the most brilliant speaker on the JLP side. Of course, spreading a lot of propaganda, but give her credit, she was able to spread the ethos and the pathos and whatever you want to call it of the Jamaican Labour Party and made the JLP talking point. She brought them home much more forcibly. I think that I would say that I would give her flowers for having done that, for having put on a grand show. I'm sure that Andrew Holness, even fact, when the PNP, I think when the question was asked by, was it Raymond Price or can't remember the Fraser Binns lady, about Andrew Holness's corruption charges, and she really, deflected and went into one great accomplishment, that monologue, right, about Andrew Holness's stewardship of the Jamaica's economy and Jamaica's political landscape. All right, I think that was good. Very convincing, very cogent. Of course, she did not really answer the questions because none of them wanted to answer questions. They all were throwing back darts at each other, barbs at each other, saying that I am the better, you are not, you have not, managed the economy well, I have, etc., etc. That was the whole gist of the national debate that we saw last night. Now, in terms of data driven. I thought that Matthew Samuda on the GLP side, and of course, your boy, Damon Crawford, who is a mathematician, and maybe he's also into stats. He did a very good job. Maybe they were not, of course, dishing out real stats, but they were able to speak from a much more rational perspective, much more controlled, not, what should I say now? They were not consumed with emotionalism, okay, with disseminating emotional sentiments, but they were looking at data, and their thing was more data driven. I think I was impressed with Matthew Samuda. Thought that he handled himself very well, and I think the same for Damon Crawford. Damon Crawford, however, just needs to learn how sometimes to pronounce his words, and to like a leader look like a leader. And I think if Damon Crawford takes the job seriously, sometimes I don't think Damon Crawford takes the political um, job seriously. He knows he has talents where that is concerned, but he's not taking the role as seriously as he should. When people take their role seriously, the way how they dress, the way how they speak, the way how they comport themselves, you will see it. You will see it. It is noticeable when somebody takes what they're doing seriously. It comes through their speech, through their attire, through their body language, through their gestures, that they are really serious about what they're doing. When you look at Andrew Holness, he's serious about what he's doing. He might not be doing the things that you want him to do, but he is serious about the job. When you look at Kamina Johnson-Smith, a Colonel Charles Jr., and the same Matthew Samuda, and the same Ben's lady too. You can see the seriousness. Raymond Price, now he was a shining star of the PNP. And when he speaks, he reminds me of Dr. Peter Phillips in terms of his academic language. I think that of all of them, he's the one who you can see had some amount of experience teaching at the university level. The others might say, like the Damon Crawfords, that they were lecturers at the University of the West Indies, but it doesn't show. I'm sorry. But when Raymond Price opens up his mouth and the way how he handles the language and the deliberative manner in which he speaks, the authoritative manner in which he articulates his sentiments, that is the sort of, way in which Dr. Peter Phillips would do it. Of course, different style. They have different style, don't get me wrong, but I'm looking at the use of language and how the language is used and the deliberation in which they use the language authoritatively and convincingly, even if you think that you don't agree with what they're saying. But Raymond Price stood out on the PNP side as the one who shone. He would have won the debate or the debates on the PNP side. And his final wrapping up statements for the PNP was superb. So was Colonel Charles Jr., but I would have given the flowers to Damon Crawford in terms of his wrapping up his final statements on where the PNP is going and that they're going to win the election, whatever he said. All right, it was very well done. And but I would have preferred, as I'm saying, in the next debates, that key issues like healthcare, economics, education, and of course the role of government, with both the prime minister and the opposition leader, that it should be done individually. Yes, we can have a social debates where maybe a fifth component and have them do that. Okay, but in terms of having these people to back up, like the Favor Williams and the other minister or the opposition minister of finance, that would be Julian Robinson. No, no, no. All right, it should be done single-handedly, individually, so we can see what they are doing and what they are all about. It's going to be the same thing when they come on for the finances and the Economics is going to be the same thing, the same drama, the same short responses, the same sound bite answers that we got last night. So it from a superficial perspective, it was a good debate. It was a decent debate. It was a world-class debate from a superficial perspective. If you like what you see in the United States and all these countries, everything the United States does, we follow, as if everything they do is great. But that is what we're doing, and I would think that neither party won, but as I said, a few personalities, a few persons stood out in the debate. And on the PNP side, I would give the flowers to Damon Crawford, who did magnificently. I think the other two also performed well. I think I was impressed with the Binns, with Fraser Binns. I think that she is a budding politician, and I think that her points were forcefully also conveyed. I would give her flowers for doing that also. All right. But I think that the two stars would be, if I were to ask me in terms of who would they want to win if had they listened to those people, I would say that Raymond Price and Kamina Johnson Smith would be from the GLP section. All right. So I hope that you have gathered something from the debate. Who do you think won? Do you think any of the parties won? Or do you agree with my sentiments about Raymond Price being the shining star of the PNP and Kamina Johnson Smith being the shining star of the GLP? Please let me know in the comment section, and see you in another video. All the best to you. Ciao.